Today we're going to be taking my Cb750 out for a little ride. I actually haven't rode this bike for a little bit, so it'd be nice to get a little bit of seat time on it, but this is a cold startup on it. There we go. She does not like to be cold. Once we get some heat into her, it'll run nicely. Always when these bikes are warmed up, they perform so much better. I don't know why, but I guess 4 carburetors, they don't really like to be cold. Getting some heat into this motorcycle, it rides fantastic. I mean, it doesn't really give any problems when it's cold, but it's just a little finicky sometimes. Recently, we've done a decent amount of content with my K model. This right here is a 1975 F model Cb750. The F model is a Supersport with a 4-into-1 exhaust from the factory. This bike unfortunately does have an aftermarket muffler on it, and it has an aftermarket seat. There are new versions of both of those parts available for sale. I'm thinking about committing to getting a new seat for this motorcycle because I have listed this bike for sale. This is probably going to be one of my last rides with the bike, and I just want to talk a little bit about what the difference between actually riding this and the K model are. If you're unfamiliar with the differences between the K model and the F model, I've made a whole video with the two bikes side by side. Now this is an F1 and not an F2. The F2's got a little bit of upgrades to the motor, so this doesn't have those, and it basically is the same exact motor setup as my K model, which is actually a 1976, so it actually came out 1 year later than this one did. I suppose these could have been on the showroom together. Talking a little bit about the differences between this and a K model, other than just the specs and stuff, as far as it goes to ride, the bikes are incredibly similar. Obviously with the same motor, the same frame practically, these bikes are almost the same. It's just minor differences, and the biggest thing you really notice while riding is the tank. The tank on this bike is a lot skinnier than the tank on the K model. The K model tank, you kind of feel it between your legs, while this tank, there's a lot of leg room here. Not one is better than the other. They're basically about the same, but it's just something that you notice. I do have an aftermarket seat, so I do think I sit a little bit higher, but even with that being said, I think my K model has a little bit of a higher handlebar from the factory. I think that's something that just came with different models. Different dealers put different add-ons as well, but I believe there was an option for different handlebars, a low set handlebar and a high set handlebar. And I'm not talking about the big old chopper handlebars, I'm talking just about minor OEM differences between the two, because I have noticed some bikes come with a little bit of a higher set and some do come with a little bit of a lower set bar from the factory. Other than appearance differences, the biggest difference between this and my K model would actually be the fact that this doesn't have a drum brake in the rear and has a rear disc brake. A little fun fact about the Cb750, if you didn't know, the Cb750 was the first ever motorcycle, production motorcycle, made with a disc brake. Honda was really ahead of their time, and in 1975 when they introduced the Supersport, they put a disc brake in the rear. As far as the difference it makes in actual real-life applications is basically zero. 70 to 75% of your stopping power comes from the front wheel. Your front brake is way more powerful and designed to stop the bike, while your rear brake is really for balance purposes and that little bit of extra bite. I'm sure if we did a braking test between the Supersport and my K model, the drum versus the disc would be a little bit more efficient. In reality, drum brakes kind of get a bad name for themselves, even though they aren't horrible. Disc brakes are a tad bit easier to service, and that's kind of what everyone goes to compared to drums. The stopping power is better in a disc brake setup depending on what caliper you have, obviously, but the biggest thing is heat. Disc brakes can expel a lot more heat and control the heat a lot better than drum brakes could, which reduces brake fade. So when it comes to real life application of that rear disc brake versus the drum, you're seeing little to no effect on the road. The Supersport and the K model are just the same bike with a different cosmetic package, basically. If you're looking to get the fastest machine out there, I mean, you're probably not even looking at Cb750s to begin with. At this point, these bikes are over 50 years old. talking about performance numbers and everything, I mean, it's basically a useless statistic, right? If you want something really fast from the era, in the later 70s, Suzuki, Kawasaki made dual overhead cam motorcycles that are way more powerful, and that's why Honda eventually decided to go to dual overhead cams as well. But like I was saying, this bike is currently listed for sale. If anyone is interested, my email is in the description down below. The reason I am selling it, I'm sure some of you guys are wondering as well, because when I first bought the bike I had some plans for it, but after buying my CB400 I don't really have the need to have all of these CB750s and CBs from the time. One of my goals was to complete the CB lineup, the 350, the 400, the 550/500, and the 750. Now, I don't have another Supersport in my collection for 750s, but at this point, I think that having the 750 lineup that I do just is a little too much. My plans with this bike were just to make it back original, paint the tank, get better side covers, or paint the side covers, get the original seat back on the motorcycle, and probably source a remanufactured original exhaust, and just have the bike factory fresh once again, or as close to as possible. But at this time, I just want to make a little bit of space in the garage for other projects, other motorcycles to come, and also to finish off some of the bikes that I currently have. And this bike I just don't see myself working on, and I don't see myself putting enough miles on it to justify it sticking around. This bike really doesn't have any issues. Like, this bike truly is a turnkey, ready to go, ready to be maintained motorcycle. The tires are newer on it. If I can make my K model as good and ready to go as this bike is, that's all I'd really want. It's a perfect rider for someone who is learning to ride, or someone who wants a vintage bike. It might be old, but it still goes. The Supersport just feels so good to ride. It's so planted. And the seat might not be the greatest to look at. It is fairly comfortable. The one thing about the CB750s that will get you is that throttle. It's very stiff. I wish the throttle was a little bit lighter, but other than that, effortless. It's not a bike that you have to work to ride, but something that you can just hop on and just cruise. There's a big reason why these bikes are so loved. I always say it and I'll say it again. This Cb750 really just is a fantastic machine, and something that you just cannot go wrong with. If you're looking to get one, highly suggest it as always. If you guys did enjoy this video, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and I will see you guys in the next video.